Hi, friends. Welcome to my made up on the spot introverted homeschool moms at home conference. So, this idea comes from the fact that in a couple of days, I'm going to travel about an hour and a half or so to spend time with a dear friend who is fairly new to homeschooling. And I just want to speak life into her. And so, as I tend to do, I made a binder. And this binder is going to be hers, specific for her and her unique God-given personality. But there's so much of it that applies to all of us introverted mothers. Now, an introvert is not someone who doesn't like people. It doesn't mean that we refuse to be around crowds. It does not mean shy. There are cases when you can have shy introverts. You could even have some shy extroverts. But it's not about, am I willing to talk to people or not? I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm routinely in front of groups of people, and I have no problem with that. Introvert tends to refer to how we recharge our batteries. And so once I am out and about, once I've done an event or I've spoken at a conference or I've been away for a retreat, I know that I need to take time with Jesus, myself, for some good soul care. I'm going to hide away from the world for a little bit and I'm going to recharge my batteries, not in a large group setting. Introverts are unique in that way that our batteries recharge when we are surrounded by peace, comfort, safety, and not a lot of noise. Extroverts tend to feel energized and charged up when they are in group settings with other people. And that's beautiful and that's wonderful. And you probably have at least an extrovert or two in your home. So this is going to focus on introverted homeschool moms because sometimes we allow that overwhelm to overwhelm us, and we think that there's something wrong with us. But when we understand what it means to be an introverted homeschool mom, we can turn that into a superpower to partner with Jesus for our homeschool, home life, work at home, living at home settings to use it to our advantage. So I'm going to start us off with three quotes. Now, my brand of homeschooling, it does not align with any specific methodology. I have come up with something very unique to my family and our specific needs. And so I can't really be placed in a box and I don't subscribe or ascribe to one specific methodology. So keep that in mind. One of my favorite educational quotes is from Charlotte Mason, and it's education is an atmosphere, a discipline, a life. Education is an atmosphere, a discipline, a life. And this reminds me that everything is education, not just a workbook, probably not mostly a workbook. It's not what happens on this schedule that you've made. It's everything all the time. Discipline and discipleship go hand in hand. So when we are educating at home, discipline and discipleship are our goals. Life is education, and that's powerful. Another quote I really love is by Sarah Mackenzie. And she has said, "What if the goal is not to get through the book, but to love the child?" And so many times we will want to finish this or complete a task and just be done. But that's not what God has called us to do. He has called us home with our children in whatever flavor that looks like to love them well, to be the hands and feet of Jesus, to send them off in a beautiful way in the world. Another one of my favorite quotes is by C.S. Lewis, who doesn't love a good C.S. Lewis quote. And he says, "The task of the modern educator is not to cut down jungles, but to irrigate deserts." So many times our to-do list will get us charged up and we have to do this, we have to do this, and this needs to be done by this date, and we can't start this until we finish that. And it's as if we've picked up this proverbial machete and we're just going to be hacking away at this jungle. But really, we're going to look for the dry places and we're going to partner with Jesus to irrigate the dry places, not to chop down what we think needs to be chopped down, not to forcefully blaze a trail through and just make it happen. So rather than cutting down jungles, we can irrigate deserts, and that's powerful. So the first thing we're going to chat about is personality. Once you understand the power of being an introvert, you are going to use that to your advantage. And so everybody is uniquely created and designed by God. No two of us, even if we share the same personality makeup, no two of us are alike, even in your own home. If you have a child who, oh, they're just like me, they're not. They have their own specific mission and vision from the Lord. And so, yes, we can all share similarities, we can all find common ground, but we are unique. Ephesians 2:10 reminds us we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. So when you understand what it means to be an introvert, you can design your homeschool in that way. I would highly suggest to take time, take a week, do a deep dive into this, take a whole day if you don't have a whole week. But if you do this one time, it will serve you well throughout all of your homeschool education years, however many that may be. I love this hack. Once upon a time, early on in my children's homeschool education journey, I figured out my specific personality type. I just love using the Myers-Briggs because that's what I was most familiar with. I personally wouldn't suggest Enneagram. That's all I'm going to say about that. Myers-Briggs is pretty safe. There may be some others out there that you're familiar with that I don't know about. But I would say there are plenty of resources for Myers-Briggs, and you're able to figure out how to type your kids, type yourself in a really easy, gentle way. So figure out your personality type because that matters the most. That's not to say you're the most important person and everyone bows to you. But if you don't have a homeschool that is sustainable for the long haul that you can manage, then you don't have a homeschool. You're going to have something that you will push forward and you will eventually crash and burn. So understanding your personality type is going to help you in everything else that you do. Understanding your children, especially in the places that they differ from you, is going to help you see how to relate to them, how to empower them, how to equip them. One of the things we have to think about in homeschooling and parenthood in general is, am I enabling my child or am I equipping my child? And the goal is always for equipping. So we can evaluate once we understand personality types. Let's see, Nurture by Nature, and the last name of the authors is Tiger. I will link that below. That was the book that I originally used when I did this deep dive. I figured out what made my kids tick, and it helped me understand at different ages how to best support how God designed them. So, Nurture by Nature by Barbara, and I forget her husband's name, Tiger. Great resource to help me figure that out. And so once I knew our personality types, I was able to not just say, this is who we are, and we are sticking to the classical model, or we are sticking to the Charlotte Mason model. I understood, okay, there are elements from this that serve our family. There are elements from this that serve our family. Curriculum and methodologies should serve your family. You should never be subservient to a mindset, a method, or a curriculum. It should serve you and your family. And I know a lot of people, if they don't really understand themselves or how God made them specifically, they will see what someone else is doing or what someone else has been successful with, or their kids are like, wow, their kids are really smart or their kids are really great. And so we're going to do exactly that. We're just going to copy and paste. Anytime that happens, it's not sustainable. It won't work because that works for that family or that child because of who they are and how God designed them. It's not a character flaw that it's not working for your family. It's just you have to lean in and have the Holy Spirit give you guidance on how to plan for your very unique family and your very unique personality types. So once you figure that out, there are going to be things that motivate you, and then there are going to be things that frustrate you. And you need to design your homeschool around the motivating, peaceful areas. For me and my home, and this is usually true of most introverts, I'm not going to say always or never. If we have visual clutter, if we have noise, whether actual like noise through our ears, visual noise, or just there's so much going on in our minds or hearts that it's just kind of like an echo chamber and just full of static, we will not operate out of a peaceful place. It's going to be hard to focus on what God is asking us to do when it feels like everything around us is screaming at us, or if everything around us is on fire all the time. So, in my home, as an introverted homeschool mom, We have to focus on quelling the clutter. We can't have piles everywhere all the time because it stresses me, stresses me out. It also stresses out my oldest, who is not an introvert, but he needs things orderly. And when things aren't ordered, it frustrates him. My youngest, he could live in piles. He will know where everything is all the time, and it bothers him none. But we have to go what's going to keep mama sane and not blowing her top. So we all work together as a family to quell the clutter. 20 minutes a day, play some upbeat worship music when you're finished with your school day or halfway through or after lunch or afternoon tea time, whatever works for you. Take 20 minutes to do a reset. Everybody's responsible for one little section. We're going to listen, we're going to sing, we're going to dance around, and we're going to bless our home. And in 20 minutes, we're going to bring as much order we can as we can to that place, and then take a break and move on to the next thing. There are times and different ages when you must work shoulder to shoulder with your children for lessons. There is a time you need to cook them breakfast and you need to cook them lunch because it would be unsafe otherwise. There are other times when they have grown and they are capable of doing things that you once did for them. And oftentimes, as mothers, we don't always recognize that shift when they've moved into a new season of capability. So evaluate, can my child safely prepare breakfast? Can my child safely prepare their own lunch? If the answer is yes, but they haven't tried it yet, scaffold, model, take a month, 2 months, walk them through. This is what it looks like to make a healthy breakfast for yourself. Here's how we use the stove. Here's how we clean up after ourselves. Here's what it looks like to have a healthy lunch. This is what works for our family. So this is how I'm going to teach you to do it. I'm going to watch you do it. I'll walk you through it, watch you do it, and then you're going to do it on your own. You are supposed to take things off your plate as they grow and mature because you are helping them grow and mature. It comes down to, am I enabling or am I empowering? There is a time where we have to take care of those things, but we may not see as mothers living in the trenches when that shift occurs of, oh, I don't have to do that. And maybe I'm not supposed to be doing that. So in the seasons where you do have to be hands-on because safety and there's so little, do it. But also recognize their individual capacity and empower them. They're going to be so proud when they're able to make their own breakfast, make their own lunch, or when they're able to do a lesson on their own. That's not to say you just put them at the table with their books or their curriculum and say, okay, be done by noon. That's not what I'm referencing. But as they're able, empower their ability. Another thing that we often don't realize that we could do but should do is outsource. Now, if you have a place like a homeschool co-op, fantastic. Those don't work for every family. Co-ops are often very difficult for introverted families. We have been involved in some. They were beautiful. They were run well. The leadership was amazing. The people were amazing and it was wonderful. And we spent years in that environment. And then there was a shift. I think there was just a shift in our family's needs at that time. And there was also a shift in and kind of the personality of the co-op where things were rather chaotic, things were rather frustrating, and we were leaving each week feeling like we'd been shell shocked. And it was almost like a whiplash where we had to recover from that. And it took me a while to figure out, okay, this no longer serves us. We are serving it. And God released us from that place. So if you're trying to force something just for the sake of, well, I think that we need to, or I thought that we should, but it really is bringing more chaos, evaluate. Is there another way to be involved? Is there a less stressful option? Is this the season for a co-op or is this the season for not? The right answer is going to depend on what God reveals to you specifically for your family and their needs. Co-ops and groups can work when they have order and your boundaries are respected and other children are expected to be respectful and honorable. And if you just have one or two where it's just like, oh, no big deal, we'll just let them do their thing, and there isn't that discipline, there is a lack of discipleship and there's chaos. We had to make a choice for ourselves where God was saying, I'm not telling you to stay here. You can stay here to your own frustration, but you are free to step out of that environment. So that was really transformative for us. If co-ops are not an option for you based on your location or finances or whatever it is, You can still outsource, okay? There are amazing history DVDs, things on Amazon Prime, things on YouTube. Look at whatever you need in your season. Drive Through History is a great one. Institute for Creation Research, ICR, is another really great one. So there's science and there's history options on YouTube, on DVD, that they are actual, really educational academic lessons. And you learn a lot and you can watch them together as a family. You don't have to have a workbook or a textbook for every single subject. I would recommend that you do not do that. And if you have done that because you thought, well, this is the right way, or this is what someone told me to do, evaluate. Do I really have to do this? You might not need to. So embrace how God has designed your family. Lean into it and don't fight it. Because when you lean into the beautiful land of introversion and you hone those skills and you create your home to be this place where that's honored, everything else is going to seem easier. If you have just focused on lessons so much that everything feels difficult or frustrated or stuck all the time, you may have neglected to create a family culture. Now, this isn't something I've heard talked about a lot specifically. It's usually implied. But to create a family culture, this is where you have special shared experiences. You have special shared meals on Friday nights. I will make homemade pizza and we will have a special Shabbat dinner and a communion at the table where we talk about how God has blessed us that particular week. We will take our pizza crust and break it as the bread. We have grape juice and fancy glass goblets that only come out once a week. I'm not saying that you have to do that. Maybe once a week or once a month, you have a bodacious breakfast, and there are waffles, and there are cinnamon rolls, there are pancakes, and there are all the things you could ever imagine for breakfast. And maybe that's your thing that you look forward to as a shared culture. One of the quickest ways to create a family culture is reading aloud together a fiction novel. We live in such a nonfiction world and a nonfiction mindset. I love what C.S. Lewis had to say about fairy tales and myths and fiction having the ability to sneak past our watchful dragons. There are ways that fiction stories can punch you right in the heart in the best way possible. Fiction read alouds are the soul of your family's homeschool. And I know so many times it's, I don't have time because we've got to do this, we have to do this, we have to do this. I don't have time to read aloud a book to my family. I would suggest you make that a priority and then a couple of other lessons, let those be the main things, and everything else for a period can fall by the wayside. Because building a shared family culture that is rich and beautiful is powerful. These series I will always, absolutely, forever recommend for building a family culture is Andrew Peterson's Wingfeather Saga. He is a Christian homeschool dad, brilliant musician for many decades before he became a brilliant, well-known worldwide author. And so know that you are reading a biblical allegory written by a man who has deep faith, a powerful love for Jesus, and it is a beautiful way for your family to create a shared culture in those pages. Don't like reading aloud? The audiobooks are fantastic. And yes, audiobooks count. So that's my immediate suggestion for building a family culture. Understand your personality, embrace your introvert self, understand your children, understand how to feed their strengths and how to come up and empower them in their weaknesses. I also encourage new homeschool families to come up with a why statement, a motto that's kind of optional but fun, a vision and goal statements for that child, for your children, for that year. And so a why statement, this is your core foundation. This is where you land and where you stand when someone's like, why are you homeschooling your kids? Or how long are you going to do that? Or when your kids are driving you batty and the big yellow school bus drives by and you're like, I just want to put them on that and I don't want to deal with this anymore. Your why statement is going to be tied to why God called you to homeschool in the first place. There is no magic formula for writing a why statement, and I recommend shorter is better. One of my favorite non-government organizations, they're a nonprofit and they serve people around the world. It's Aerial Recovery. They have so many different methods Their why statement that was created by my friend and mentor, Brittany Turner, is very simple: save lives and stop evil. Everything they do fits into that why statement. And if it doesn't fit into that why statement, they're not going to expend their time, energy, or money. So for you and your family, come up with a why statement. The more succinct, I believe, the more powerful, because you're going to be able to internalize that, to own that. And when someone is like, why are you homeschooling? You will know. Or if you feel, why am I doing this? You're going to come back to that powerful why. And it's going to feed your specific family, your specific personalities. So I homeschool to build a peaceful, purpose-driven education that will equip my kids to grow in godly character. There's an example of a why statement. That's not my why statement, like personally, but it could be that. It could even be simpler than that. But you have to know your why, or you are going to fold when it gets hard. And if God has called you to homeschool, we don't get to fold just because something is hard. A family motto. This comes down to, you think of different schools or organizations, they'll have a motto. And if you watch TV or commercials, you'll pick up mottos of different companies because they just keep saying them over and over. So a motto is something that your family can say and to just to stand on as this is who we are. It builds family identity. It builds family culture. What are your favorite scriptures? What are your favorite characters in a book? Do you love The Hobbit? Do you believe second breakfasts will save the world? Have fun. Come up with your own motto. Let your kids design it. Having a homeschool vision statement is something else. This is a hill I will die on, because once I came up with my vision statement, and Pam Barnhill, I credit her 100% for walking me through how to create my family's vision statement. When I took her, it's the Plan Your Year course. It put my homeschool on autopilot. I did it in 2018 or 2019. And that was it. That was enough to set me up for the rest of our homeschool years, because if something does not align with our vision, my vision for our homeschool, we don't do it. We don't waste our time. We don't waste our money. We don't waste our energy, because it's not going to serve our family. We'll end up serving it in the end. So homeschool vision statement, there are 1,000 different ways to write vision statements. And I'm not here to tell you that there is only one way. Your why is, this is why I'm doing this. Your foundation, your core. A motto is something fun for your family, just to build identity in the homeschool and home life process. It can be everybody all together. You can all come up with it. Your vision statement is, when my kids are 30 years old and they look back on life as a homeschooled child, what are they going to tell their friends? What do I want them to say? What do I want them to think? What do I want them to feel? Pam Barnhill had me learn to look at the 30,000-foot vision. You are creating independent, capable adults. These are God's kids. How am I going to steward the children that He's given me? It's not about, we're going to finish the lesson and move on to the next lesson. It's, I am privileged to mold a life, and I cannot do that apart from Jesus. So what's the vision here? So in whatever way you want to create a homeschool vision, I'm not going to tell you that there's one right way. You can look it up. You can probably find a fill in the blank form online, or you can just sit there and say, God, what are your goals for my kids? That's something that I did. I looked at my children's individual personality types. I prayed, I asked the Holy Spirit, what plans do you have for them? And that's what went into my vision for our homeschool. Everything I do or don't do is decided from that vision, because that's the anchor that God has given me. Goals are also really powerful, but they could also hinder us if we don't do goals in the right way. I do not need to preach about SMART goals, because I feel like that is all over the internet. If you don't know what a SMART goal is, hit pause, look it up. But it's the idea that something is, it's very specific, measurable. The results are timed, and there's a whole thing. When you create goals for your students, my personal take is no more than 3 goals per academic year. And I have a little rule for myself that the goal must fit on a sticky note. I'm not going to have an entire page of this, and this. It is, here's the goal. It needs to fit on a sticky note. It needs to be actionable. It needs to be measurable. And I'm going to say, this is how much time we're going to spend. This is how many days a week. So an example goal, let's say your kids are struggling with their math facts, with multiplication. So let's see, little Johnny Jr. will do flashcards for 10 minutes each day, 4 days a week, period. That is something that you can measure. You can't say little Johnny Jr. will learn his multiplication facts, period. That's not a goal, that's a wish. You have to come up with something that is actionable and measurable. Can you measure? Did he practice 10 minutes a day? Did he do it 4 times a week? Yes or no? And if he did, okay, let's reevaluate. In 2 weeks, how's that goal? Was it fulfilled, completed, or does it need to be, it needs to be 15 minutes a day for 5 days a week? Or once you reevaluate, he's doing great. Let's knock it to 5 minutes, 4 days a week. You can adjust the goals, but no more than 3 goals for an academic year, probably one goal at a time, and evaluate often and change as needed so that you're not just like, well, 3 months ago we set a goal and nothing ever happened because it wasn't actionable, it wasn't measurable, and you couldn't really see, is this being fulfilled or not? So you can also set family goals. For us, we would have a family goal if we were going to redo The Hobbit together. But I couldn't just say, I want my children to develop a love of reading classics because I don't have control over that. What we did have control over, my husband loves to read aloud to the kids. So I leveraged that. And so our homeschool reading goal for our family is we will read aloud from The Hobbit 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week at bedtime. We could measure that. And in so doing, my children did develop a love for these beautiful, fantastic books. But I couldn't just say, my children will develop a love of literature and just throw that out into the ether. I had to come up with a plan for how that was going to happen. We completed The Hobbit and we've moved on to so many other amazing books, and it has really built up our family culture, but it had to be a measurable goal. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about scheduling. And there is such a power of freedom that comes with scheduling. And there's 2 words that I want us to kind of understand. There is routine, which we think of like at 8 a.m. this happens, at 9 a.m. this happens, at 10 a.m. this happens. For a lot of introverted moms, homeschool moms, the word routine is not really helpful. And when we try to come up with a very specific time blocked schedule, it doesn't always work out. So the word I focus on is rhythm. You have a morning rhythm, you have a midday rhythm, you have an afternoon rhythm, you have an evening rhythm. And so you can have a little bit of wiggle room. We would have our morning time for about 45 minutes. And that would start once everybody's teeth were brushed and we had some clothes that we didn't sleep in. My kids wear athletic clothes to bed. So we never run around looking like we're in our pajamas. But I'm like, if you slept in a shirt, you're not going to smell fresh. You're not going to feel fresh. So at least change your shirt and throw some deodorant on. So we will have a kind of a trigger time or trigger behavior really. Once you are dressed for the day and your teeth are brushed, then that kicks off our day. It doesn't always happen at 9 a.m. or 9:15 because sometimes we need a little more time to wake up. As an introverted mom, quiet mornings are powerful and life-giving. The TV does not come on probably until the afternoon time, and that's if everything has been accomplished. We don't start our day with noise. We don't start our day with all the things and frustration. Quiet, peaceful lead in. So we'll brush teeth. We will get ready for the day. We'll have morning time for about 45 minutes. When we stop, I release them to go play outside for 15 to 20 minutes. And they'll come back in. We'll do a math lesson. We finish the math lesson. I release them to go out and play or to go play Legos in their room, whatever that play time, that release, that pressure release valve looks like. They need that time, and I need that time to reset, take care of other things. And so a rhythm is more powerful than a routine. Our favorite rhythm of the day has always been tea time. And it got to the point where my youngest son, he would know when it was tea time, even without, we didn't have a clock to tell us necessarily. For a while, we had an alarm that went off and played some really beautiful, peaceful music, and that was our tea time trigger. And now he'll go in the kitchen, he'll prepare his snack and his drink, and I'll ask every now and then, what you doing? He's like, it's tea time. So building a rhythm is empowering for your children's lives. Schedules and routines can be helpful in some seasons, but this is not what you live by. You want to live by a peaceful, life-giving rhythm. If you feel like everything has kind of caught fire and gone down in flames in your homeschool, take 3 months to establish a peaceful, healthy, life-giving rhythm. In your morning time or whenever you wake up or after you're ready, have a blocked out time period for the 3 R's: reading, writing, and your math, arithmetic, right? 3 R's for us are foundational. We're not going to skip those if at all possible. And then in the afternoon, do something else that you can outsource. Watch a drive-through history episode, watch an ICR podcast. There's so many things that you can do. I keep saying those two things because those are low-hanging fruit um, that are very simple. Pick one day a week that rather than a homeschool lesson, after you've done your 3 R's in the morning and maybe you've had lunch, you're going to take the afternoon to reset your home, to tidy up your home, because the idea of home economics, family and consumer science, you are training your children to maintain a loving, peaceful, restful environment, and that's going to feed your soul. That's going to help you all. And it's going to empower them when they leave your house one day. That's the goal. They're not going to live with us forever. We're not going to enable them. We're going to empower them. So don't think, oh, well, they can't help me do chores because they have to finish their geography map drawing. Chores are the lesson. That is a powerful lesson. Let them understand the power of independent work as well. You don't always have to sit side by side for everything. If you are still cooking breakfast and lunch and you're realizing upon hearing this, I don't think I have to do that anymore. Sure, I'll cook dinner for the family. Take 3 months and have them pick out their favorite meals, things that they love eating, and teach them to make them. Teach them how to make breakfast, teach them how to make lunch, teach each child how to make a dinner meal. And it can be grilled cheese. If that's where you need to start, start there. Empower them and then pick one day a week where they get to make the special meal that they have learned from you. They're going to be so proud of themselves, and you are going to have something taken off of your plate because education happens everywhere, with everything, all of the time. Life is an education. So don't think, oh, I have to have a specific lesson or I have to start all over because so much of what you already do checks those boxes of science, language, arts. It's just beautiful to understand. Let's see, I will throw some out there just so you kind of have an idea. When you do laundry together, this is math and life skills and responsibility. You're sorting, you're matching things, you're counting loads, it's time management, sequencing, folding is fine motor skills and spatial reasoning, assigning laundry to the kids as personal responsibility. So you've checked boxes for math, life skills, and character building. For the dishes, this is science and systems thinking. Hot water and soap is basic chemistry. Scraping them before loading them, order of operations. Hand washing versus the dishwasher. You can compare and contrast, and which one do we prefer? Consistent chores is habit building, and there's so much research that shows kids who have regular chores are going to be more successful in life. So do not enable them by doing things for them that they can do themselves. Cleaning, running errands, going to church. So when you go to church on Sundays, or maybe you go Saturday nights, it's Bible and community and history all working together. When they listen to a sermon, that's critical thinking and comprehension. When they're participating in worship, that's music appreciation and theology. When you are serving, or even if there are some churches where kids can serve, it's leadership and character development, Sunday school, or their classes, or a home group, family group. That's peer interaction and biblical knowledge. So you have checked boxes for religion, Bible, history, music, and social development. So don't shortchange what you're already doing because that counts as education. You can have fun with it. It doesn't always have to be workbooks. We have very few workbooks or textbooks in our home, almost none. Just a little here and there every now and then for what the season requires, what's needed at that point. It's also really important to understand how stress affects your home environment. If you look around you and it just feels like your home has exploded and everything is everywhere and there's visual clutter to the max, that is usually a manifestation or a physical representation of what's happening with your body and your soul. You may be fine spiritually and you're like, yes, Jesus and I, we got this. Maybe not. And if not, I would suggest that you definitely start working spiritually. But if you know that your spirit is rightly ordered and you love Jesus and you read your Bible not as a check in the box, but to hear from the Lord and you know that he speaks to you, a lot of people think, oh, when my home is disordered or there's chaos, it's a spiritual attack. Sometimes, probably more times than people understand, it really is your body and your soul being disordered. What that looks like is when your nervous system is out of whack, when it's imbalanced, unbalanced, or dysregulated, you're going to see some symptoms in the same way that if you have a cold, you will have physical symptoms. If things are out of whack internally, your home environment is going to be one of the first telltale signs. When nothing is ordered, when everything feels mismanaged, when you've just started accumulating so much stuff that you don't know what to do with it, you are likely living outside of the design that God has given you for your personality. And if it's too chaotic, or maybe sometimes for others it's too sterile, or it's too noisy, or too rigid, it's kind of like trying to walk around with a stone in your shoe. It's not going to work. It's going to be uncomfortable, and you're not going to go very far before you really have to take care of it. So understand and recognize if your home is disordered and you feel stuck everywhere all the time, it's most likely your body and your nervous system, and you are dysregulated. So you're going to have to make part of your daily rhythm focusing on your body, soul, and spirit coming together in alignment. You have to have boundaries. You need to create beautiful, safe spaces for yourself, even small intentional workspaces. Clear it of clutter. And some people will say this doesn't matter, but you can light a candle, you can turn on a soft lamp, because your visual environment, it really does matter. And I've heard so many people say, "Oh, I'm just supposed to light a candle and make a cup of tea and that fixes everything." Well, no, it doesn't fix everything, but yes, it does reset your nervous system. It does help. There are things that you can do in your environment to help you. And then as you physically, spiritually, and your soul, it's your mind, will, and emotions, as you bring all of that into alignment with what God has called us to do and be, your environment is going to get in line with that. You are going to be able to manage your home better because you are no longer living in survival mode. So we have to rewire our brains to get out of survival mode, because our home environments are going to reflect what's happening internally with us. So take as much off your plate as possible. Throw away as much junk stuff or clutter as possible. If you haven't touched it in 6 months to a year, you probably don't need it and you probably won't miss it. Automate as much as possible. Taco Tuesdays, Meatloaf Mondays, whatever it is, Spaghetti Saturdays. Come up with your family's favorite top 10 meals and just rotate them. Or maybe all you can handle is maybe 3 to 5 meals with leftovers being on the menu for the next day. Automate. Don't put yourself into decision fatigue. Let your home run on a routine, just like your homeschool day can run on a routine. Because what happens in your nervous system affects the home, and what's happening in the home around you affects your nervous system. So when you're feeling overwhelmed, engage in breath prayers. And if you're like, what are you talking about? A breath prayer is simply you're going to inhale through your nose as you pray a phrase in your mind and your heart. It's not out loud. And then you're going to exhale. My go-to breath prayer, and I pray it about 5 times in a row, is Abba, I belong to you. So I'll inhale and I pray Abba in my mind on that inhale. And then I'll exhale. And in my mind and my heart, I'm praying, I belong to you. That breath exercise is your body partnering with the spiritual aspect of prayer. And I'm recentering my focus on God. And I'm actually calming my amygdala, bringing my frontal cortex online, and I'm balancing my nervous system. So there are things that you can do to help calm and quell. Blessing your home to keep things clutter-free and chaos-free is powerful, and that should be a priority, not an afterthought. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about curriculum. Curriculum, it kind of just means a way of life. It does not necessarily mean a workbook, a textbook, or a list of check in the box lessons. Our modern day education academic system has us tend to believe that curriculum is academic work. Yes, that can be, but it's important to remember your curriculum should serve you and you do not serve your curriculum. It is not the driver of all of your decisions. Curriculum is a tool, it's not a taskmaster, and it should serve your family's needs. It shouldn't drive them. Biblically, Galatians 5:1 reminds us that it's for freedom that Christ has set us free. So don't let yourselves be burdened by a yoke of slavery. You do not serve the curriculum. So there's a mindset shift that really needs to happen in the area of curriculum. When we sit down for a meal, one of my sons will eat maybe half of his meal and he'll get up to leave and he'll say, I'm full, but he's not finished. I like to say, finish your meal, and he'll tell me, I'm full. So if we take that mindset and look at our curriculum or our workbook or our check the boxes or fill in the blanks or whatever it is, we need to have a mindset shift from did you finish to are you full? Are you full of nutrition and the nutrients and the healthy foods? Because half an hour or 45 minutes later, we'll put his dinner in the fridge. He genuinely was full. It's not that he was being disobedient. It was not a heart issue. His stomach was full, even if I thought he only ate a little bit. And then when he was no longer too full, he would come back and finish the rest. What a beautiful way to interact with curriculum and our children. Did you finish the lesson exactly and do all the problems? Or did you fill your mind, heart, your brain with knowledge? And they can be filled with knowledge, truth, goodness, and beauty without necessarily finishing the lesson. So finishing should not be the ultimate goal. Filling mind, body, soul, and spirit should be, it really is a better goal. So we get caught up in did you finish? And if you didn't finish, there are consequences or there are issues or there are problems. Sometimes the math lesson will need to be paused because they are full and you are full. And when you're not as full, you can come back and finish it with grace. Once you have your why, once you have your vision statement, once you have an understanding of this is who we are and this is why we homeschool, you are going to make curriculum choices through that lens. Because some people are going to really thrive off a certain type of curriculum or a method of curriculum. And others, it would absolutely crush them if they were to try something that was outside of their personality type, outside of their why statement, and outside of their vision. So you need to run it through, does this curriculum fit our why? Yes or no? Does it fit our personality types? Yes or no? Is it sustainable with my schedule in the home? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, it's not sustainable, do not waste your money. Stop there. Next question, is it a wise investment? Can it be reused with another child? Um, can it be ordered digitally or secondhand? Is it worth the investment? Sometimes we think it's worth the investment and it's really not. Another question to ask yourself is, does it bring peace? Or is it for peace or do I feel pressured? And if you feel pressured into something, you probably don't need it. In all actuality, you need very few what we traditionally think of as workbooks or textbook curriculum. So less is more, and it's actually going to be better to allow your children free time. They need to be bored. There's plenty of science and research to prove this. Yes, there are times when they need some structure. Yes, there are times that you need to sit with them to work through a lesson, but there are other times they need to have unstructured playtime or they need to have open-ended projects throughout their day because that's when they are going to just come alive and they're going to learn to play, and that's going to be a pressure release for themselves. If everything is scheduled the entire day, it's too much. It will be too much on your body, soul, and spirit, and it will be too much on them. And then you're going to start fighting, you're going to start arguing, everything is going to become an issue when that doesn't have to be the case. Another thing I've learned over the years is conducting periodic child interviews. And I think this was Brandy Vencel that taught me this principle. And it reminds me of Proverbs 27:23. Know well the conditions of your flocks and give attention to your herds. So regular check-ins with my kids, it has built relationship, it's revealed hidden needs, and it invites their hearts to be empowered in their learning journey. So for me, I think I've only officially formally done this twice, and we've homeschooled since they were like 2 and 4. So we've always only ever homeschooled. Um, and there were a couple times when I just felt like there was a lot of friction in the schedule. It wasn't like between me and the kids. It just felt like something was off. And so I set each one down individually. I went over a series of questions. Again, there's no right answer for the questions. It's what's going to work for your family. And I would ask them favorite subjects, what they like, what they don't like, what's working, what's a favorite book we've read in the last year. If you could add anything, what would it be? Is there anything you want to take away? Is there anything I should know? Just there's a whole lot of questions you could ask, but it doesn't have to be a whole lot. It could just be focused on a few things. When I sat down into these child interviews in the past, the very first time I did it, it led me to really reevaluate and spend a lot of time in prayer. And it led us to, it helped me hear what God had been trying to tell me. And it was, you need to walk away from the co-op you're in. It wasn't bad. It wasn't dangerous. I didn't understand why. I just knew, okay, I have this evaluation, this little interview that I've done with each kid. These are giving me some really important information. And God is very clearly telling me to step away from that. I didn't know why. I just had to be obedient. Well, he knew why, because it was going to be within that year. That was the year before COVID hit. And he knew that I was the year after I was going to be deployed for 3 months at one time. And then the year after that, I was going to be deployed for 6 months at another time. So he gave us a whole year where we had one day back on our plates just to spend time together as a family. And I didn't know, but he was building up all this precious time because I was going to be away doing military medical response and all of that in the next few years. So the child interview forms are powerful. There was another time a few years later, I was just feeling this kind of friction and let's reevaluate some things. And it also led to some really incredible, helpful changes in our homeschool mindset, and our schedule and our rhythms. The last thing I'm going to talk about is understanding your local homeschool laws. Every state is different, and give to Caesar what is Caesar's, right? Our kids do not belong to Caesar. That's not what I'm saying. But if they say we have to keep track of how many days we're educating, get a planner, circle the days. If this is something you really have to keep track of, this is where I'm going to foot stomp Pam Barnhill. Plan your year, put your homeschool on autopilot. She will help you do this in a way that is life-giving and not frustrating and very simple. If you live in a place like Texas, Texas is very much get off my grass with a lot of things, especially homeschooling. So this is where we need to understand the rules of the land so that we can work well in that space, not to be subservient to laws and rules, but to honor the place that we live. 1 Thessalonians 5:6. So then let us not be like others who are asleep, but let us be awake and somber. We can understand what's going on around us in a way that can be helpful. And so, based on your state, figure out what they require. Texas requires 5 specific things. Now, I don't only teach my children 5 specific subjects, but I'm not going to bend over backwards with a 5-year-old to fit absolutely everything in if I am not legally required to do it. There are things that we will add in because I want them to know it. And my children still have a more robust education than most most children who are in the public school system. And I know because I worked in the public school system for many years. I know the requirements, but I also know the power of recess often throughout the day. I also know the power of boredom and open-ended play, and they get a whole lot of that in a way that they wouldn't get in 8 hours in a classroom. So understand your state's requirements and do not try to break your back to do everything that you think you should be doing on top of that because you just have to prepare them. Less really is more. And so lean into if all my state says this is all I have to do, great. Accomplish what's needed, take care of those requirements, and add in things as you see fit. When they're about 15 years old, those requirements will change for your high school credits. If you are not yet at that point, do not give yourself a migraine trying to fulfill pressures that you're putting on yourself for no real reason. So understanding what is actually required of you is really empowering. One of my favorite verses is Isaiah 32:18. And this just reminds us of the power of homeschooling, understanding our introverted selves, designing a home and a homeschool that allows us to breathe and allows us to feel shalom peace within the walls and within the lessons. It's my people will abide in a peaceful habitation, in secure dwellings, and in quiet resting places. Yes, you go out of your four walls. Yes, you have fun. And yes, there's noise and life and all the things that happen. But your home should be a safe place where you can come and retreat, recover, be rebuilt and restored, and you should be able to love on one another. If your home is not a safe space, if it's full of yelling, if it's full of frustration, if it's, I just told you to do this, would you just finish this lesson? If that's where we're headed, that reminds me of that C.S. Lewis quote where we are no longer irrigating the deserts, but we're chopping down the jungles. So if it feels like you have this proverbial machete in your hand and you're just hacking through, we got to do this. Take a deep breath, put it down, evaluate your home environment. What can you change? How can you reset your nervous system to honor the way that God designed you, to live within His Sabbath margin and His limits? Because when you lean into Him and you say yes to what He has for you and you work hard to say no to everything else, there will be a change and a transition, and it will be a beautiful, tangible difference. But it doesn't happen accidentally. It doesn't happen automatically. It happens through intention. Scripture tells us to take every thought captive. Well, we are going to have to also, as Scripture tells us, subdue our domains. And I tell my boys what it looks like to take a thought captive is when you see a police officer chasing down a suspect. It's not, hey, will you please stop? They have to actively go after the perpetrator. When we have a thought that is against scripture or that is harmful, we are going to go after that with the word of God. We're going to work to subdue that thought, not that it's our own works. It's the righteousness of Christ. It's the blood of Jesus. But it's an active thing to take a thought captive. It's an active thing to subdue our domains. It will not happen by accident. And if we just sit back, stressed out and freaking out, it also just won't happen on its own. So I bless you, sweet introverted homeschool mama, to subdue your domain with Jesus, to understand the power of a balanced nervous system and how it can be life-giving in your homeschool. I bless you to do what is needed and what God has called you to do and nothing else. I bless you to be free and released from the pressures of other people, of Pinterest, of Instagram, of your own expectations. I bless you to hear from the Father's heart. He just wants to spend time with you, that He wants to lead you as you homeschool your children. I bless you to embrace your introverted identity and to love how God has created you. I bless you to stop striving for other people's ideals and lean in to the Father's arms and let Him just wrap you in His love. Homeschooling with an introverted personality is beautiful. Submit to God, understand His plans for you, and be free.